gonna lie, this is actually one of my favorite sweaters. My name is Kayla and welcome to my comfy, cozy, chaotic corner of the internet. In today's video, I thought it would be fun. I've seen a few people do this recently, most prominently in the top of the noggin is Gavin Reads All. They have been just going through the Rory Gilmore reading list and just comparing and contrasting what they've read from that list. And I have actually looked through this list previously because it was a reading prompt for one of my bingo cards. So I have a general idea of what's on this list, but I thought it would be fun to maybe speak a little bit more to my experience with the different books that I have actually read on the list, and maybe we'll find some books to add to my ever-growing TBR. With that noted, feel free, grab a notebook, take some notes, grab a highlighter, grab your comfy, cozy drink, and let's just like snuggle up and scroll through some books. Yes, I realize this is not a Yale sweater, but it's still on the collegiate scale and it is the same colors. So, you know, I thought I would dress accordingly. And let's hop into Rory's reading list. And just so you guys know why I keep looking down, we're using the laptop today. Let's see what we got going on in here. I do want to note, I did just Google Rory Gilmore reading list and this was the website that came up. The candid cover. Okay, 1984 by George Orwell. I actually have never read this book, and if I need to read it, let me know in the comments down below if you have read it and you think it's worth the time and effort. I say that as if it's a really huge book. I have seen the physical copy of the book numerous times in my life. From recollection, I believe it is on the slimmer side of things. Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. I think I read that, but not... If I did, it would have been like in school, so quite some time ago. Alice in Wonderland. I've actually never read Alice in Wonderland. It's always been a book that's been on my list of books to read, but I just haven't gotten to it. The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Never heard of it. An American Tragedy. Why does that sound so familiar? I feel like I may have owned that book at one time and then got rid of it. I don't know. Angela's Ashes, no clue. Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl, definitely read that. That was a required read when I went to school. I don't know if it still is. Anna Karenina, never read it. It was at my reading list at one point to read it. I think probably around the time that the movie came out starring Keira Knightley and Aaron Taylor Johnson. I was like, ooh, let's check this out. And then I just never I didn't want to watch the movie without reading the book, and I think I saw the book in person. I was like, oh, no, I'm good. Archidamian War. Never heard of it. The Art of Fiction. Nope. The Art of War. I actually have read The Art of War. It was on the Commandant's reading list when I was in the Marines. And yeah, I think it was just like a quick book to read. So I was just like, sure, I'll read it. Why not? As I Lay Dying. For some reason, I feel like I've read this book. This is the thing. I need covers, y'all. We need covers. As I Lay... no, I don't. I've never read that book. Nope. Atonement. Also, have never read it. I did see the movie, mostly, not gonna lie. I saw the movie because James McAvoy was in it. And... That man. It's actually kind of wild to see his transition from being like in these romance movies to being in a lot of thrillers. Like there's a new thriller coming out with him and it looks creepy AF. He's such a dynamic actor, and I just can't believe that he hasn't, maybe he has won awards, but I can't believe he hasn't won like an Oscar yet. Like literally that man can go from making me want to like rip my clothes off to absolutely being terrified of him. It's wild. But no, I've never read Atonement. Also, the movie Atonement, literally the only reason I saw it was because of James McAvoy. Either I didn't get it or I just didn't like it. I feel like maybe that needs to be a rewatch. Autobiography of the Face, The Awakening, Babe. I actually don't think I've ever read Babe. Have I read Babe? No, not Babe. Charlotte's Web I've read, but I've never read Babe. Backlash, The Undeclared War Against American Women. Nope. Balzac. Nope. Nope. The Bell Jar. The Bell Jar I actually have not read, but I don't know why. I had like the hankering the other day. I think someone was talking about it in a video and I was like, ooh, that sounds interesting. So if you guys have read The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, should I read it? I feel like it's one of those classics that everyone's supposed to read. I just haven't read it. Beloved by Toni Morrison, nope. Beowulf, nope. The Bhagavad Gita, nope. The Bolesky Brothers, nope. Bitch in Praise of Difficult Women, nope. Bolt from Blue, no. I'm not gonna read through all these. Like, physically say all the names. That's a lot. Brigadoon, Candide. Have read Candide. I had to read it for school. Could I tell you, I couldn't speak to it, to be quite frank. You know how, like, when you're in high school or maybe even college, depending on what you're studying, like, you're just reading so many books back to back to back to back to back that they all kind of just blend together. That was Candide. So I definitely remember reading Candide. I definitely remember talking about Candide. I just can't tell you what Candide is about. Canterbury Tales. Another one where I'm pretty sure I've read it. Carrie by Stephen King. I haven't read it. I haven't seen the movie either. I know the concept of Carrie. That's about it. Catch-22. I actually don't know if I read that book. I think it was a required read, but then for some reason, here's the thing. We're just gonna cover this right off the bat because I feel like I'll probably mention it later on down the road anyways. There were so many like required reads when I was in high school that I feel like for some reason my graduating class just didn't read the standard required reads. Like the year before us read all of the required reads and the year after us read all the required reads. But for some reason my year, we just like switched it up a bit, jazzed things up a bit. So I don't believe I've ever read Catch-22, and if I did, couldn't tell you anything about it. Catcher in the Rye, I did read that. I think, is that the one with Holden Caulfield? I'm pretty sure that's Catcher in the Rye. And I actually own it. I found it recently at a little free library. Yeah, I don't know why. Don't ask me why, but I just really liked the super basic cover with just like the little rainbow dude in the corner. Okay, Charlotte's Web. Yes, I have read that. The Children's Hour. Nope. Christine by Stephen King. Nope. Christmas Carol. I have not read that, but that's actually on my winter reading list because I do own it. Clockwork Orange. Didn't know that was a book. The Code of Woosters. Collected Stories. Comedy. Complete. Confederate Count. I've never read The Count of Monte Cristo. I've heard a few people lately say it's a really good book, but I think that's another one like Anna Karenina where it's a chonker, so I don't know if I'd ever actually read it. But if y'all have read The Count of Monte Cristo and you think it's worth the time and effort, let me know, and maybe I'll try to check it out. I don't know. Cousin Bet. Nope. Crime and Punishment. I've actually tried to start Crime and Punishment a few times. Specifically in the past like 2 years I've tried to read Crime and Punishment, and I don't know, just something about it. I don't know if it's the translation I have or what, but it is just hard. It was hard to read. The Crimson Petal and the White Crucible. Did I read that? I'm pretty sure I read that. I'm like getting the Crucible and Scarlet Letter mixed up. I think I've read the Crucible and I haven't read the Scarlet Letter. Not quite sure. Cujo, nope. Nope. David Copperfield, I don't know. Da Vinci Code. I know for sure I started the Da Vinci Code back when it like first came out. I remember checking out from the library and there was a really cool illustrated version that had a lot of the artwork that was mentioned in the book in the actual book. I know for sure I started it, but I don't know if I actually ever finished the book. Maybe that should be one I revisit because I do remember actually really enjoying it, and I know it kind of like blew up and it was a whole phenomena that everyone was reading it at the time, but I think I do recall liking it. I haven't read any of these. Devil in the White Ooh, no, yes, Devil in the White City. I actually started reading that book and I got probably like halfway through and then I loaned it to a friend and that friend never returned it to me because we had a falling out and I just haven't gotten back into reading it. Divine Secrets, haven't read that. Don Quixote, Drunk Miss Daisy, Dr. Goes Red. Edgar Allan Poe, Complete Tales. I mean, I've read a handful of Edgar's work. Edgar, like he's my best friend. I have read a few of Mr. Poe's work and quite enjoy it, and I actually am planning on reading a few more of his stories. we might be talking more about him later this year. I quite honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I've ever read Eloise. I definitely read some Junie B. Jones, but I don't think I ever read Eloise. Emily the Strange. Oh my god, loved Emily the Strange. That was so totally my vibe. Emma by Jane Austen. Never read. I actually have been tackling Jane Austen quite a bit this year, so we might add Emma to the list eventually. Empire Falls, Encyclopedia Brown. Did I ever read any of the Encyclopedia Brown series? I'm sure I read at least one. Fahrenheit 451, absolutely, that's classic, definitely read it. Fellowship of the Ring, did read Fellowship of the Ring. I think I started to read Two Towers and just never finished it, so maybe we'll revisit that someday. Frankenstein has always kind of been on my list, but I have a concern that sometimes the older classics are so hit and miss with me because sometimes I find them so easy and entertaining to read, and then other times I feel like I'm reading Latin, you know? And I don't know. Should I read Frankenstein? If so, I want to get, if I do read Frankenstein, I know there's so many like pretty editions of Frankenstein, so I'd want to get like a pretty edition of Frankenstein. So at the very least, if I don't actually read it, it at least looks good on my shelf. Freaky Friday, never read. No. Okay, Grapes of Wrath, I'm pretty sure I read. John Steinbeck, I know for sure I've read at least one of his books because, like, school. Great Gatsby, I actually never read The Great Gatsby in school, and I know that was, like, used to be a required read, specifically in high school, but again, I was in a class. My graduating class, for some reason, we skipped a bunch of, like, the standard books. So I had never read The Great Gatsby until I read it in 2022. I used to stream on Twitch, and every Sunday I would like sit out on my porch and read books to my stream. The Great Gatsby was one of the first books we read, and to be quite frank, I did not enjoy it. Read it all the way through, and I was just like, why is everyone obsessed with this book? No offense, Mr. F. Scott. We're from the same state. There's literally a theater in downtown St. Paul that I've walked past numerous times named after you. But I'm just not a fan of The Great Gatsby. If you like The Great Gatsby, like, please tell me what about that book you enjoyed. This is coming from someone who loves morally gray characters, who loves unreliable narrators. These people were all just so slimy and skeezy, and I didn't like any of them. I think the only one I even slightly liked was the actual narrator of the book. Do I remember his name? No. But yeah, I feel like the narrator was just a bystander of the debauchery of Daisy and Daisy's husband and Gatsby. Yeah, I don't know. I was not a fan of The Great Gatsby. So sorry. Great Expectations. Pretty sure I started to try and read it, but I didn't. The Group. Hamlet. Definitely read Hamlet for school. Here's the thing with Shakespeare, because I know there's going to be, yeah, there's already more on the list. I enjoy consuming Shakespeare in the format it was intended to be consumed in. So I love watching the plays. I love watching the plays so much. Actually just sitting down and trying to read Shakespeare. But yeah, I don't know what kind of psychopath can just sit down and read Shakespeare. Truly, like, it's the intended format of Shakespeare is to be a play. And I think, in my humble opinion, Shakespeare needs to be consumed in that way. It shouldn't be read. That's my personal opinion. So yes, I've read Hamlet, really enjoyed it. All the Harry Potters. I'm actually surprised not all of them are on here. It's weird that Goblet of Fire and Sorcerer's Stone are the only two listed. Heart of Darkness, Helter Skelter. I've not read Helter Skelter, but I actually kind of want to. The Henrys, I actually have not read or watched any Henrys. So if you guys think Henry, the 4th or 5th, is worth watching, let me know. I'm tracking her down. Nope, never read it. Watched it. Iliad. Inferno. Nope. Actually, I don't know. A part of me really wants to read Dante's Inferno. Is it worth the read? Is it worth the time and effort? Julius Caesar, obviously. Nope, nope. I say obviously when I didn't read Henry, but I have read Julius Caesar by Shakespeare. I don't know if I've read The Kite Runner. I know that was such like a big book in my teens, late teens, early 20s, I think. And I know exactly what the cover looks like. But yeah, I don't think I've ever actually read it. Should I add it to the list? Little Women. I have not read Little Women. Here's the thing with Little Women. It's kind of like the same fear I have with Anna Karenina. This is such a thick book. But I've seen both of the movies. I think I'm just gonna stick with them. Not to be that person, but I think I'm just gonna stick with I think I'm just gonna stick with the movies because like the movies themselves were enjoyable and the stories in the movie, like obviously the movie's based off the book, and the story was good. The characters were interesting, but I don't know if I'd really actually want to commit to sitting down and spending time with that story and with those characters. I know that might be blasphemous to some, but just my personal opinion. Lord of the Flies. I actually have never read Lord of the Flies. I do own the Lord of the Flies, and it is on my list to read. Clearly, it's on my shelf. Lovely Bones. Haven't read it. I know that was like a big one back when I was, I think, in like 7th, 8th grade. I remember my older sister owned the Lovely Bones. Macbeth. Literally just read that a few weeks ago. Master and Margarita. I had actually never heard of this book until, I don't know if you guys know who Bailey Sarian is. A few years ago actually at this point, she had posted the Master and Margarita on her Instagram that she was reading it. I was like, oh, interesting. And the cover looked interesting. I actually have no idea what it's about, but it is definitely a book. Now that it's on my radar, I feel like I see it everywhere. So if you have read The Master and Margarita and you think it's worth the gander, let me know. Memoirs. Me Talk Pretty One Day. No, 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 no. My Sister's Keeper. Jodi Pickle. I think my mom read a lot of Jodi Pickle. Mom, correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember when the movie came out, that was like a huge thing. To be frank, I feel like that was a flash in the pan moment. I feel like a lot of these books that became movies were so flash in the pan moments that they had a really big following at the time. So like a movie was obviously made. And then if you asked anyone, probably Gen Z, if they've read My Sister's Keeper, they'd probably be like, what? Like, it was very much a mark in the timeline, and that's it. Nanny Diaries. Definitely read the Nanny Diaries. Oh my god, I love the Nanny Diaries. This was in a time actually where I was reading so much. I literally was living at my library at this time, and it was just wild because like the Nanny Diaries came out as a movie, The Devil Wears Prada came out, Confessions of a Shopaholic was a movie. Like all of these books that I had been reading were becoming movies, and I was just like, it was a wild time to be alive. It was a wild time to be alive. The Nanny Diaries, I actually call this controversial. The Nanny Diaries and The Devil Wears Prada and Confessions of a Shopaholic, I preferred the book. I think I kind of, those are such quick, easy, fun reads. I kind of want to like reread them and then like watch the movies again so I have a fresh comparison. But let's continue on with this. Again, Nanny Diaries. Amazing. Yeah, so many of these books haven't heard of. Here are two. So Night by Elie Wiesel. Definitely read it. I know for sure I read it. Could I tell you anything about it? No, because I'm pretty sure I read that like in 6th grade. It was definitely still in like elementary school, but like older elementary school. Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. Y'all, I have such a bone to pick with this book. I thought of all the books that Jane Austen ever wrote, I thought I was going to love Northanger Abbey. I thought I was going to love Northanger Abbey so much. I actually went through a phase, mostly because of my mother. She was very much into like historical fiction and historical stuff in general. And she went through a phase where like everything we watched was Jane Austen-esque. I had seen all of like the Jane Austen stuff like the BBC movies. I'd seen like the TV shows if there were one. Obviously, like the Keira Knightley, Matthew McFadden, Pride and Prejudice version. With that noted, I had seen the BBC version movie of Northanger Abbey, so I thought I was good. I enjoyed that. Enjoyed it. I thought I was going to enjoy the book. I could not stand any of the characters in that book. Our main character, don't even remember her name. I was so annoyed with that book. She was just like this insufferable teenager. I couldn't stand her. Her love interest was such a prick. Total a-hole. The other guy who was interested in our main female character, he was like all right at the beginning. I definitely liked him more than the guy she was interested in. But then like halfway through the book, he also became like a douche canoe. I'm so frustrated at how much I did not enjoy Northanger Abbey because it's sold as, it's supposed to be a satire on gothic romances. I don't know. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It was terrible. Mice and Men, definitely read it. I think that was the one, was that the one with Lenny? That's a sad book. That was definitely a book I read in elementary school too. That was a sad book. On the Road by Jack Kerouac. Once Over the Cuckoo's Nest, never read it. Ooh, that's an interesting cover though. Oryx and Crake. Interesting. Othello, obviously. I think honestly, what is my favorite Shakespeare? Othello, that's such a good one. And that's also a good one because like it's easy. For some reason, Othello's easy to read. Like, if you're gonna sit down and read Shakespeare, which I do not recommend, I feel like Othello is one of the ones you could sit down and just read. Perks, I've never read this book. Never read it. Didn't see the movie. Again, another flash in the pan moment. Picture of Dorian Gray. I have actually started the Picture of Dorian Gray numerous times, and I just could not get into it. I found it so boring, and I was actually kind of devastated because I really liked the character of Dorian Gray in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Obviously, you know, that is such a good movie. Oh my god. Man, they don't make movies like that anymore. Anyways, I really like Dorian Gray in that movie. So I think I had my expectations of Dorian Gray to be for the actual book to be kind of in that same vein. It definitely was not. Just so you know. Pinocchio. I've actually never read Pinocchio. Pride and Prejudice. Read it. Loved it. It took me quite some time to finish. So I think there's like the reason I love it so much and why I hold it in such high regard is because like I'm also just proud of myself for reading and finishing that book all on my own. I will fully admit that. If I read it today, I don't know if I would have the same feelings story-wise about it, but there's just like that pride in self. Rapunzel, never, I mean, I probably read renditions of it, but have I ever read for sure the Brothers Grimm version of Rapunzel? Probably not. The Raven, isn't The Raven one of his poems and not a short story? I feel like that shouldn't be on here if it was just one of his poems. The Razor's Edge, Reading Lolita, Rebecca, that is a dope cover though, oh my gosh. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Red Tent, Return of the King. Haven't read it. Saw the movie, obviously. I say obviously as if everyone has seen Lord of the Rings. I know that's not true. Not everyone's seen Lord of the Rings. Romeo and Juliet. Definitely. Again, watch it. Don't read it. Nope. Sense and Sensibility. Nope, haven't read it. On the list, though, for sure. I feel like I should just read all of Jane Austen so I can just be like, here are my favorites. Maybe, you know, Northanger Abbey won't be at the bottom of that list. Also, y'all, I've never read Stephen King, and I know he's like a cult classic. Everyone loves him. So let me know if I should read Stephen King and which one I should read. There's a lot to choose from, so which Stephen King should I read? Snow White and the Red Rose. I actually haven't read it. I used to own a Brothers Grimm fairy tale book. Maybe I should get more of those. Because I actually really do love, like, those classic fairy tales. Like, the actual fairy tales. Sonnet, Sophie. Nope. Stuart Little. Didn't read it. It's on the movie, though. It's kind of, like, crazy to see how many books were made into movies. Just even scrolling through this list. It's like, oh, I didn't even realize that was a book. Tale of Two Cities. I have started to read this book so many times. And by so many times, in my younger years. I haven't tried to read it recently. It was The Best of Times. It was the worst of times. Ooh, I'm not gonna lie, actually, I've never read anything by Mr. Fitzgerald outside of The Great Gatsby. To Kill a Mockingbird, like, I don't even remember the full story of that book, but you know how you just read something and it just holds a place in your heart? Like, you just remember the way it made you feel. That's To Kill a Mockingbird. So good, especially because it's been like 20 years since I read it. Virgin Soup. Oh my god, I didn't realize that was a book. This is actually was recently added to like my ever-growing movie list. The Virgin Suicides is a movie. But yeah, I didn't know that was a book. Interesting. Wizard of Oz, never read. Wicked. I started actually reading Wicked. I started reading the book Wicked. I'm actually intrigued how far I got into it. Do you guys ever like remember reading a book and you think that you didn't finish it and then you finish it and you're like, I knew everything that I just read? I feel like that might be the situation with Wicked. Wizard of Oz, never read it. Wuthering Heights, never read it. And to be quite frank, I know it's a classic. From everyone who's explained it, whether they really loved it or they felt meh about it, it just doesn't sound interesting to me. Ooh, that's interesting. They also include A Year in the Life. Rory's reading list from that. That's interesting. Okay. So these would be more recent books as well. And then there were none. Haven't read it, but I do own it, so it is on the list. Y'all, I'm not gonna lie. I was actually thinking that like because this is from the limited series that more of these I would have read because they're more recent books. I haven't read any of these. I mean, Horton Hears a Who. Tick. He's Just Not That Into You. I'm pretty sure I've read that book. I need to see the cover. You always need to... Oh yeah, I definitely read that book. I think that's like a self-help book, I think. Jurassic Park, no, but it's kind of on my list. Kind of. Debating. Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe. I'm pretty sure I've read that book. That would have been like a book I read in elementary school. For sure. Matilda. Never read Matilda, but I have read other Roald Dahls. I'm actually surprised there aren't more Roald Dahls on this book. Like The Witches. I know for sure I read The Witches. Midsummer Night's Dream. Have I read that one? I don't know. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I don't think I've actually read that book. I remember for sure I checked it out from the library, though. Probably the same time that I checked out He's Just Not That Into You. But I don't think I've actually read it. Oedipus Rex. Definitely read Oedipus Rex. Crazy stories, y'all. Crazy. Oliver Twist. No? I think that's one of the books I've read for school, if you know what I mean. Telltale Heart. Telltale Heart has my heart. That is one of my favorite short stories by Edgar Allan Poe. That and The Pit and the Pendulum. Love. Wild, another flash in the pan moment. I remember this was all the rage, especially when that movie came out with Reese Witherspoon. Haven't read it. I also haven't seen the movie, so that maybe this is a good one to also add to that list of book movie comparison. Witches of Eastwick. Haven't read it, but I have seen it. Classic. You should watch it if you haven't. Yoga for Dummies and that compact Oxford English. Has she read it like all the way through though? I feel like this should only be on the list if she's read it all the way through. Okay, y'all. Well, that is the end of that. That was a lot, actually. I didn't realize how many there would be. Also, I didn't realize how many I would just be like scrolling through. And not just the fact that I'm like scrolling through them, but like the fact that I've never even heard of most of those books was interesting. Here is the total amount of books on that list that I have read. Let me know in the comments down below. I kind of want to do like at least like a little reading vlog where I read maybe a couple of the books that were on this list that I haven't read before. So if there were any books that I had like thrown out there or maybe you saw on the screen where you're like, oh, that's a really good one, you should read it, let me know in the comments down below. But with that, thank y'all so much for hanging out with me this morning. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see y'all in the next one.